Okay, fantastic. So I'm joined by Denzil Monk this afternoon. And Denzil, we're going to go through some questions and ask them. So if you'd like to tell us a bit more about your business, is it pronounced Bocena? Bocena?
Oh, Bocena.
Bocena, that was close there. Yeah, so if you want to tell us a bit more about your company and sort of how long you've been going for, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. So I started Bocena in November 2019. We set the company up to really for a film production that we were supposed to start shooting in early 2020, but with with the pandemic and everything, that got scuppered like so many other things and got pushed back a year. So we quickly, rather than going straight into production and making a feature film, which was the plan, we then sort of split our focus into developing different projects. So and then over the last 2.5 years, I guess we've been running now, we've built up quite a good slate, I think, of mostly narrative features, some documentary projects. We've also done a few other little projects, a music video for The Smile, and some children's animations, Cornish language children's animations and things. But the core business is narrative features and documentary features. And the film that we were going to shoot, that we set the company up to make in the first place, we ended up filming a year later under strict COVID restrictions, COVID lockdown restrictions, and that film was completed earlier this year and launched at Directors Fortnight in Cannes this May, and is now making its way out into the world, being sold by our sales company. We've sold to Neon in the US, BFI Distribution in the UK, and other territories are kind of going as we speak. So that will come out probably early part of next year, I think, more likely than this year. Don't quote me on when it's coming out because we haven't fixed the date yet, but it will be launching fairly soon. And then behind that, we've got these other projects at various stages. One which is almost ready to sort of package and finance and move into production, hopefully next year. Another one which we're just sort of getting near the end of the script development process, that again might be ready for going into production next year, and then several others sort of a step or two behind that.
Fantastic to hear that you've got such a global reach, I think, coming out of FAM, which is good. Were you lucky enough to go to Cannes yourself? Penzance, sorry. Yeah. Were you lucky enough to go to Cannes yourself?
Yes, yeah. There was four of us went over, myself and my partner and Mark, the writer-director, and his partner Mary, who also starred in the film. So there was also so we sort of travelled over together and spent a few days there launching the film, doing press and all the rest of it. And there was another, probably I think there was about a dozen of us there in the end from Cornwall. Some with the film and others who just happened to be there. There's a film distributor based in Mevergizy who goes every year. So we Pat Hellman. So we saw Pat Hellman. Sorry, we saw him up there as well. Yeah, so it's nice. There was a good Cornish contingent in Cannes this year.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to been there. I've been there when the film festival was going on. It is fantastic. I mentioned Falmouth, I think. So do you have sort of connections and ties with Falmouth University? I think that's where I got that from.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We work closely with the university. So I've taught there I looked at my LinkedIn profile, I think for the last 15 years, much longer than it's been a university, or on and off. And I've been running the MA practice on MA Film and Television for the last couple of years. So I have a very good relationship with the School of Film and Television there, and work with them. And there's a fairly recent, although it's sort of building on many years' work, cinema lab, the Sound Image Cinema Lab, that's kind of grown out of Falmouth University, which is sort of how they interface as a higher education and research institution with industry. So I kind of sit with a foot in both camps, because I do a bit of teaching there, have been doing a bit of teaching and research work there. So I'm sort of in the department, but also through Bocena, I kind of worked with them on a couple of projects. So they were one of the organisations that were one of the investors in this project, Ennis Main, that we've just launched. So we kind of look for opportunities to get students involved, obviously, but also graduate placements and working with the staff and facilities there as well. It's kind of, we don't have a huge amount of screen industry infrastructure in Cornwall, and so the university, and then more recently Screen Cornwall obviously has come along as well, but in terms of physical infrastructure and facilities and things, Falmouth University School of Film and Television has been quite important over the last decade or so.
Decade. Fantastic. So I'm talking about your business yourself, and obviously working alongside being a lecturer, but sort of focusing on yourself as a business owner. What have your biggest learnings been to date so far, I guess, working through the pandemic and, coming out the other side, hopefully?
Yeah, I mean, I know obviously the last couple of years have been really challenging for everybody in all sorts of ways. Some people have really suffered through that period. From a business point of view, it's kind of, it ended up being quite an opportunity for me, and quite a good time for setting up the business, because it kind of gave me a bit more. I had a bit more headspace than I would normally have, because so many things came to a stop, and then with even some of the things that continuing online, they just left a bit more room around the edges, and less running about from one place to another, just sort of doing lots of things, which is kind of what I've been doing for the last 20 years, is sort of running between 20 or 30 different projects at the same time. So you kind of get, that sort of full stop, I guess, giving me time to step back again, as I think a lot of people did, step back and just sort of have a think about where I want to be focusing my energy and attention, and it gave me time to write a business plan whilst in the first year of setting up the business. So whilst we had this major project sort of on hold, and starting to sort of pull together some other projects around it. The thing with feature films is they're very slow. They take quite a long time. They could take years to kind of go from a seed of an idea, sometimes several years before it's ready to even go out for financing for production, and then that process can take anywhere from some months, if you're very lucky, to some years. So you're talking about a sort of 3 to 5 year cycle for each of those projects. So having a bit of time to plan and think ahead and look into the future with that was really important. I'll kind of come to the end of, so when our year end runs to the end of the end of December, so this is our third year trading that we're in now, and I'm now, over this next 6 months, reworking, or 4 or 5 months, reworking the business plan, looking forward to the next 3 to 5 years, because all the things that we sort of projected at the beginning, it was all ideas in my head and conversations with people. A lot of those things have come to fruition now, or are in the process of coming to fruition. So it's kind of, it's starting from a more solid place, that the business exists. We've got some proven work in, selling well in the market, which is always a good thing for this. And then things which were just like a title or a line or an idea or a conversation back at the beginning of my previous iteration of business planning are now active projects with teams of people kind of attached to them in various ways, and moving along at various paces. So it's kind of, it feels like it's a good time to, and particularly in preparation for when Ennis Main is released into the world, there'll be a whole load of press and focus around that. Really from this autumn through into the early part of next year, and hopefully continuing through next year. It's a good time for me to be pushing hard on the other projects that we've got going.
Do you have your next sort of project lined up, ready to go? Is it a work in progress already, or is it just an idea on a piece of paper?
I've got the next several projects.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say 10 then or something. I was like, wow.
Well, I look at people, I say, how many projects you got on the go? I kind of go, well, I'm not sure. It depends where you draw the edges around them, but probably somewhere between 10 and 20.
Oh, wow, I was right.
Circling. but you know, some of those are really early. Some of those are you know, a conversation or a sheet, you know, one side of A4 of an idea that's going to take a bit of time to develop. Others are, you know, and then some of those projects are nearing completion as well, or in the sort of final stages of delivery. So there's a range of things, but it is kind of it's at the point where my personal capacity is about as fully stretched as it can be. So hence thinking about how to grow the business over the next few years to not just to sustain the projects that we've got going at the moment, but also to bring others in and to expand our capacity. So that's kind of where we need to go next with it.
Is it just you at the moment? I mean, in the office, or do you have a team? Or?
Well, there's I've got one employee, and then most of the work that is done is freelance and sort of contracted freelance work. So, and I mean, there's kind of, again, in the same way as like how many projects are there, how many people are there, there's kind of there's lots of people involved at different stages and different aspects. So I couldn't even tell you how many people are contracted on projects at the moment, probably half a dozen or so, but most of that is in writing development processes, and then and then obviously when we go into production on something, that expands out into a much larger team for the duration of that in different shapes, different ways. So I kind of, my focus at the moment is split into two areas. One is about the infrastructure of the business of to get the infrastructure of working at a point where I can focus on the things I need to focus on, and some of the things that I have been doing, just because, you know, it's what you do when you start up, is doing everything, that I'm farming out as much of those jobs that I don't need to personally be doing as possible, whether that's, you know, sort of office admin, financial stuff, or marketing, or all of those things, and just kind of trying to set up the right structures with the right subcontractors or staffing for that, in order to then be able to, as we sort of move into larger scale productions and multiple productions over the coming years, that everything's ticking along, the engine of the business is working well. So that's what. So alongside being, particularly with feature projects, just because they're bigger stories, they take a huge amount of focus. So when you're sort of working on something, you're completely absorbed in that thing. But then some days I've got a meeting about one project and then another project, so you sort of completely this whole world that you sort of existing in, and then have to step out of it and step into another, and then step out of all of it to you know, make sure that the VAT return's done, or whatever. So
various different hats you're having to wear there.
Yes, absolutely.
And then is there anything that you would sort of personally say to anybody that was thinking about starting their own business or going into business themselves?
I would say, well, so I've set up and run quite a few different businesses, different types of businesses as well, and what I've learned and hopefully have got right this time is, so it's partly about it's making sure you've got the right people involved from the outset, you know, in terms of who owns the business and who's doing what, and that there's clarity around that, which can be very simple if it's just you, but can be very complicated very quickly if it's not just you. So it's making sure that you're kind of thinking far enough ahead of what the business is going to be and how it's going to run, and particularly what your place is in it, to make sure you've got the right mix of people. I think that's crucial. And the other thing I'd say is just do it. You know, I'm a great believer in, if you've got a good idea, or even better, a crazy idea, and it feels like the right thing to do, then it's sort of fixing the intention of, this is the thing that must happen, and then working out how to get there, rather than, so if you start thinking about all the reasons, there's always a million reasons why you can't do something. But if you've got a crazy idea and enough willpower, I think you can do anything. So
I like that idea. And then you mentioned you started in November 2019. So obviously you've worked through pandemic at a certain sort of space and time, but is there anything that you would do differently going through your business now? Or are you sort of happy with the outcome that you've got at the moment?
No, I think say sort of because of the timing of it, you know, it was very frustrating. It was a very difficult and frustrating kind of few weeks of uncertainty about, you know, whether we were going to go ahead with the production, and then just everything just stopped, and that kind of was quite concerning for a little while. You know, it's just because everything's precarious when it's new before it exists. But then I like I said, I think it kind of the silver lining of that situation was that it gave me time to step back and think about what, you know, beyond that one project, what I wanted the business to do more broadly, and what I wanted to do more broadly, and where the focus of that is, which is it's a continual iterative process of thinking. It's not like it's sort of set on something and that's it forever, but there's definitely a sort of a direction of travel that comes from that. I don't think we'd do anything different. I mean, it was actually a bit of a blessing, the fact that we were still under lockdown when we shot the film, because it's set on an isolated island, and we were shooting it all around Penwith moors and cliffs, which, although the places where we were are fairly quiet most of the time, you know, in the summer when there isn't a lockdown, or in the spring even when there isn't a lockdown, you get a lot of people wandering about, and so we might have actually had a sort of a perfect situation where we were filming in places that normally you might have had, you know, a walker in the distance or something that would get in the way of a shot, but there was nobody about it. It was completely and also with really strict COVID protocols around how we were shooting, the fact that we were a small crew filming out on very windy cliffs and moors helped with that situation. I know a lot of other productions really struggled. In fact, I was on not one of our productions, we were visiting a set yesterday where although the restrictions have eased from the government and from some of the financiers and people involved in the production, the production team themselves got really strict protocols around it, just because the cases are really high again at the moment. And, you know, if you lose somebody really crucial, it could just put a stop to the production, and there's so much riding on it once you move into that. It's very sketchy. So it's kind of, it's like there's ongoing challenges. We're not sort of out the other end of it yet with that production.
No, that's good. That sounds great. I have to tell me the name of it. I'll write it down, and then I'll have to keep an eye out for it.
Of
the feature film.
The film Enys Men. It's called ENYS.
Yeah.
New word MEN. Enys Men.
Fantastic. I'm going to write that down so I can keep an eye out for it.
Yeah. We got from the launch in Cannes. There was some reviews written around it then. So there's a not tons because it hasn't been released yet, but in industry press there's a few reviews and things out there which are good, which we're happy
fantastic with. I'll take a Google, that's for sure.